That's
What?
right.
What? What?
It's podcast time. Everyone dance.
No.
Wherever you are right now,
No.
do a little
No.
dance. Do a little dance for the people. They'll love it. Comment down below if you want Jim to do a little dance. Ooh.
You're such a problem. You, I really wonder if we brought home the right child.
I think you did.
I really
Given
don't
that we
know.
look identical.
Yeah, I know that. But even so, it's like, where does he get this dancing thing? What's going on?
Oh, you're a dancer. You were a dancer in your youth. Ballet, I've heard.
Yes, yes, ballet and of course tap from time to time. Actually, I always wanted to tap dance. Always wanted to tap dance.
You know, it's never too late.
It's no, sometimes it is. People need to
No, it's
accept
not.
that the other stuff. It's never too late to start doing. No, sometimes it's you missed your chance. Your train has left the
Never too
station.
late to start ski jumping. I disagree. I disagree strongly. But
Yeah, but you're only 24 years old, so
it's true. I'm
I've
still in
got
the
a few.
prime of my
I
youth.
have a couple of decades on you, so I think that I can. I speak from experience.
You're only 44?
Yes, yeah, yeah. I aged quick.
Wow.
I
Hmm.
aged really fast. So how you been here? I haven't talked to you for a couple of days. What's going on?
Nothing.
Okay,
Just
so
hanging out.
next
Got a whole box
subject.
of donuts at work the other day. That was pretty cool.
Were they free? Just somebody left them there and you brought them home?
No. Nobody showed up to an event that was being thrown, and they had about 8 boxes of donuts kicking around. And so everybody who was there went home with a box of
Well,
donuts. I haven't eaten
yeah,
all of them.
they would. You
Yeah.
can't. You don't want donuts to go to waste.
No,
That's a
exactly.
bad thing. So,
It's a big investment, but that's been the most exciting thing going on for me. Um, how about you?
what have I been doing? Been reading up on Saga. Last night I went and played Call of Cthulhu with my guys down at the game store.
Oh,
What?
isn't that the second time you've got to do that now?
Oh no, this is. I've been down there a number of times. We meet every other
Oh,
week to play the game.
I didn't realize there'd been that many.
Yeah, we've probably played. I'm thinking 6 times, maybe 7 times. I'm not exactly sure, but something like that. Right now, the guy who runs it, his name's Chris. Really great guy. He has us on the Orient Express, and so we're trying to. There's all kinds of crazy going on. I am a parapsychologist. My name is Maximilian Hurst, and I am a parapsychologist. Go figure. And we've been sent by the university to investigate some really strange happenings that started to occur after an archaeologist had brought some things back from a Central American excavation. So we had to
The
get on.
classic Cthulhu
Exactly.
story
It's
plot
right.
line.
It's just following right along, which is great.
Yeah.
We had to take a ship from Boston, well, just north of Boston. We had to take a ship from New York, Boston, then New York. Then we went straight to London, and then I have a friend who is a member of, I think it might be like the Board of Regents or something, at the British Museum. So I ended up having to go and meet some people at the British Museum. We had a really strange situation occur after that where me and my four companions, we went down to just have a cup of tea.
Hmm.
And when we got there and drank the tea, we all passed out and had a really strange otherworldly experience where we became, for just a short space of time, Aztecs, and we were shot and killed by a bunch of British/English explorers who were doing an excavation in Central America. And so then we all woke up. We'd all been killed by this. We all woke up and realized that there was a problem. And then we read in the paper that some people had, what'd you just do?
I pulled my lamp off of my table. It survived. Don't worry. Sorry about that for our audio listeners and for our
And for
video
our video listeners,
listeners.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
strange. That's okay. Strange event. There were three people who were all killed in the same hotel on the same night in the same way, and they all had the same name. And so we had to go in and do a little investigative work on that, and then we ended up going down to the actual person who had the name of the people who had been killed. They were imposters, but the guy who had the real name has disappeared. Nobody knows where it is. We went down to his shop, and we broke into his shop to get a rock that had some carving on it. It's probably part of a statue, part of a stele, something like that. And so we have that, and we know that the person who tried to poison us, we managed to get a hold of a ticket that he had where he was going to get on the Orient Express. And so we had to go buy tickets to get on the Orient Express. And now we have to get on the train and figure out what all these cultists are doing on the train. So kind of fun. Yeah, it's fun. We had a good time. We had a really good time.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Is this the Chris that I've met before, or is this a different Chris?
You met this Chris at the gaming convention last year, the Cheyenne Gaming Convention last year. He was in the Star Trek room, and he had the lightsabers, and he was like, "Hey,
yes.
Look at these cool lightsabers."
Yes,
it's that
yes,
Chris.
yes.
It's that Chris.
Okay.
He's a really good, nice guy, and he also wants me to join in on a Star Trek game that he has running. I think this is put up by Modifius, and in fact, I'm almost.
Is it a role-playing game?
Yeah, it is. It's.
Wow.
I'm thinking it's. I'm like 99.8% sure it's Modifius. I got the chance to flip through the book, and he's really keen on getting this started. He's a big Star Trek fan, and so I said, "Well, yeah, who isn't? That I know." And
Plebeians.
Yeah, exactly. Them. There's us, and there's them. And so the only issue is I can't justify going down and playing at the game store every week on Wednesday, basically.
You don't think Mom would be okay with that?
Your mother, she's a tolerant woman putting up with all this nonsense that I do, and I don't want to push that. So I think
sure.
I had to tell Chris, we're going to have to see how this plays out. I would love to do it, but I'm just, sadly, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do the Star Trek.
Well, I mean, with the more specific RPGs that are in these already crafted worlds, I always wonder what the experience, because I've never played one before,
right.
And I always kind of wonder what the experience is like. Like I remember there's an Alien one that I always see in game stores whenever I go, and
okay.
For our listeners, Alien and Aliens, those are some of my favorite movies, favorite universe of all time. Absolutely love it. But I feel like once you played in like that or in a Star Trek one or anything else 2-3 times, I almost feel like you kind of run out of stuff to do in a way.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from on it. I really do, especially in like an Aliens one, because that is a really limited universe, right? But Star Trek, I got to be saying that you could go on. I mean, come on, it's the final frontier, man.
If you go, do you remember those books that you have that it's like it's the manual?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with that, and then you've got the other thing that has all the maps in it.
Yep, it has has the maps of the Enterprise. Yeah,
of the Enterprise. You have to bring those with.
Those came
Bust
out
those puppies out.
Yeah, those are like from the 1970s.
God, that handbook is cool.
Yeah, I know. I love both of those things that I've got, and I was thinking I had to go down there. I just need to lay those out on the table and say, Chris, this is what I want. I want to pilot this.
I want one of these.
That's right. Give me one of these.
Throws the binder back over his shoulder.
That's right.
Done. We're doing that now.
That's right. But anyway, that was pretty cool. And then what else happened? Oh, I also ran into CJ. He's actually the owner of the game store that I go down and play this at. And I've known CJ from back when I actually had a job. And
you're going to Olympus.
Yeah. This is all taking place at Olympus.
Okay.
And so I talked to CJ, and he is heavily into Saga. And I said, hey, I've heard that you play some Saga. And he said, oh, yeah. He said, we've got about 5 or 6 people who get together fairly regularly. And I said, well, I just happen to have a mound of Viking, Saxon, and et cetera, warriors. He said, oh, heck, you need to get down here he said, it'll either be Thursday nights or on Saturdays. Sometimes we play on Saturdays instead. So that's kind of nice to have an open, a place to go and play the game with people who know what they're doing to really get a good understanding that is second nature about the game, as opposed to,
Yeah.
wait, give me the manual, flip, 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 flip. It'll be good
Yeah.
to have people who are more familiar with it than I am that I can play with and again make it more of a second nature thing as opposed to I think it's like this.
No, that'll be cool. And I mean, just to kind of learn from their expertise, but also get, I mean, I'm sure that once the miniatures games actually start to be played, there's probably a lot of strategy that goes into it that I
Exactly.
have not
Yeah.
even begun
Exactly.
to consider.
Right. And
Um,
that's I think that's the biggest thing for me.
yeah. No, that's really cool. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Um, I'm glad that there are thriving game stores in Delaware
In Delaware. Yeah.
that are able to that are welcoming to people wanting to learn how to play some of these
It,
games
it
and get
it is
together and
really
do stuff.
nice. It's that East Coast mentality,
I'm
it's
telling you, man.
it's a good thing. It's really good.
No, that is cool though, and I'm really glad the Call of Cthulhu is going well. Um, at some point, I don't know when because we really have three active campaigns going on
Right.
with the usual group. It's going to be tough to introduce a Call of Cthulhu in to that as well, into that
I
rotation.
agree. And the more that in fact, I talked with Chris about it last night, and I also talked with Chaz. Chaz goes down, and he's playing in the Call of
Yeah,
Cthulhu game.
I remember you talking to him about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he's fun to have there because he has the same mental approach to role playing games that I've got or that we have. Very detail oriented, very investigative, very, let's do this. What do you think? Maybe we should try that instead of just, let's roll some dice. I mean,
Yeah.
he plays it as a role playing game like we think role playing games should be done. So it's good to have him there. And I was talking to him afterward, and we're just kicking around ideas. And I'm really thinking that I might, rather than try and introduce a whole new rule set, i.e., Call of Cthulhu, I think I'm going to take that Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages scenario booklet.
Hmm.
I think I'm just going to dump it into our homebrew style rule set
Yeah.
and play it out of that. I mean, keep the same flavor, keep the same, the approach to the stories that are in
Hmm.
Call of Cthulhu, but just use the rule set that I'm familiar with because then I can make things move a little bit quicker as we're playing the game.
No, I think that would be a lot of fun. Because yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it on the podcast before.
Yeah.
I've wondered how you were going to incorporate that into D&D, which rule set you would use, but I think that'll be really cool. Even if we just use totally new characters, or if they're
No,
added into
well,
what we're doing now.
no. See,
Either way,
yeah. What I really
no,
want to
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was done.
Oh, no. What I really want to do is this is going to be a separate game. This is not going to be dumped into my campaign. This is going to be a completely
Okay.
separate game. That is our homebrew D&D Call of Cthulhu esque in 8th century Britain. So
Sure.
yeah, that's what I want to
No,
try
I
and do.
think I really do think that's going to be a lot of fun. Um, because you know me, I'm a Cthulhu guy.
Yeah, you
I'm a
you
Cthulhu
are.
cat.
You're a
One
Cthulhu
might
cat.
call me
That's right.
a Cthulhu cat.
The Cthulhu
I'm a
cat.
cool happening Cthulhu cat. No, that's real. That's exciting, and it's nice. I think that with that game in particular, granted, I've only played it the one time you and I sat down once you got
Right.
the manual and like
Right.
played for an hour. Um, but it seems like it is a game that requires that style of role playing,
It does.
which I think is part of why it's so appealing. Because you can't just charge in, start stabbing things. You've got to approach things slowly,
You have to
think it
think your way
through.
through. You've got to find clues, and you've got to come up with why things are being done and how they're being done and who's responsible and things like that. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's yeah. I want to keep that feel with that 8th century. The 750s, Dark Ages, England, Call of
the
Cthulhu.
opening to
Just
Holy Grail, England,
things
what
rolling
is it?
by. I can't remember.
800 AD.
800 AD, something like that. Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, I've
that's on
been
the
getting
plan.
I've been getting the hankering to play um, Mansions of Madness recently. I think it's just that the weather's changing,
Right. And it's
and
this
I
time of
think
year that we
that
usually used to play it.
yeah, because it's like I don't know, it's like Halloween season, and
Yep.
that kind of spookier, creepier, dark kind of theming is
Sure.
starting to
No, I get it.
appeal, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I gotta get back on the Orient Express,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I get
oh
it.
man,
That was a heck of that was a fun scenario. That one that we played.
that one, the boat one.
And the boat one was good too. Yes, it was.
Oh yeah,
What we didn't announce that this is like our 20. This is our 22nd podcast.
22nd, is that the
22nd
number?
podcast. Yes.
Give it
And
up.
one of the cool things was the people who have downloaded the actual audio podcast. That's up
Mhm.
160%.
I saw that email from
From
Podbean. That
from
was
yeah, I was like, what the? When did this happen? There's a whole bunch of stuff. What was
I always forget that it does
It,
that. It
it
does that
does.
in meetings when I'm at work, and I'm like, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry, I didn't mean to give you guys a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I don't mean
Anyway,
thumbs up to not taking out the trash.
yeah.
No, I thought that was actually really quite a nice milestone for the actual podcast, not the video of the podcast, but for the
Yeah.
podcast itself. But the interview with Robbie was really popular. A
I
lot of
should look
people.
today. It's over
It's
500
over
views just on
500
YouTube,
views. Yeah, so
which, in the grand scheme of things,
is
again, we know,
nothing. We realize,
understand.
but
But
for
for
us,
us, that's really cool. And I mean, I think we've talked about it a little bit. We've been kind of trying to figure out why that was so popular, whether it was just because we had a
yeah,
guest, whether it was Enclave specific, and you guys were really excited to hear what Robbie had to say. We had a great time making it. But if you guys would like to see more guests on the podcast, if that was something that you liked, please let us know down below. And we can't guarantee that it'll be super common. We've got a couple people in mind that we want to talk to.
yes, yes, and
But
we need to get. I mean, we could even toss out some teasers on that right now. We are the person, somebody that I have wanted to interview for a long period of time has been Chris Holmes.
yeah,
He is the son of John Eric Holmes, the person who designed the Holmes Basic set back in 1977, 78.
which we made a
And
video on if
we,
you want to go look at that.
yeah, but Chris got in touch with us after we posted that video and said, hey, if you want to do an interview or something, let me know. And we've been in touch with him. The biggest delay that we had for it was we couldn't figure out our hardware. And now that we can actually do this, and we've had a successful podcast with Robbie, podcast interview with Robbie, I got in touch with Chris again and said, hey, what are you thinking? Could we maybe do this in December? So hopefully fairly soon we'll be able to sit
Yeah.
down with him and do that. Another person that we have had some conversation with, just brief conversations with, is Luke from Limithron and the inventor of Pirate Borg.
Hmm.
And so he may be on a podcast interview with us at some point as well. None of these are
Yeah.
definite. I think that the Chris Holmes one that's
Pretty
pretty
close.
close to
That-
being definite.
I'm confident that'll happen.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of people we would like to have on moving forward on this. We want to find people that I think our audience are going to be able to relate to, and might find some interesting things going on from these people because they play the same style of game. They play the tabletop role playing games the same way that we do. That kind of an approach to finding guests to be on the podcast. So anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank Robbie again for coming out and
Oh,
doing
yeah,
that. I don't
yeah.
know if you're going to watch this, Robbie, but it was cool to get to talk to you and hear your perspective on things and your game. So that really was a lot of fun. So thank you for coming and doing that again. Everyone in the comments below say thank you, Robbie. And if you have someone in specific that's not, Joe Manganiello that you'd like us to talk to, comment
Let
down
us
below
know.
and we'll maybe
Yeah.
see what we can do.
Yep.
There's no guarantee it'll happen, but
No,
who knows?
But you never know. It might be something that we
Take-
managed to make work. Surprisingly,
Yeah.
these weird doors are opening up for the Old Warlock in the past couple of months that we never thought we would even see the doors, let alone have them open up to us. So it's going well.
Yeah. But no, it's I'm glad that people are listening because we do put a decent amount of effort in this podcast and making sure that it happens regularly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that people are paying attention to it. It's
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Um,
Moving on from that, we need to touch on Gamma World.
oh yeah. Good Lord. That was a. I've had some time to reflect on it now. That was a
That was a hoot.
wild and crazy adventure
It was
that
a
we went
fun
on.
time.
I think in terms of just stuff happening, there was
Hmm.
probably more. I mean, granted, because we've gotten into not a rut, but we've gotten into kind of a pattern of when we play, we don't get a lot done,
Well,
at
you
least
get a lot done,
in
but you
terms of
don't
progression in the
exactly.
story.
Right.
Yeah, we plod our way through things slowly, and we're really considering every aspect because we know you and we know how you are.
Don't know what you're
So
talking. No, you
things go slowly. But when we played Gamma World,
slowly
what,
and
2 weeks
safely.
ago,
2 weeks ago, yeah, I
it
think so.
was it was just insanity, start to
Well,
finish.
I'm going to disagree with that. I think it was very calm and deliberate up until the time that you restarted the power plant
Yeah,
for the star base, for the
I'll
not the star base, but the starport.
Starport. I will grant you
That's
that.
when things started going crazy.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before, but I know you people probably don't listen to every one of these. So just to rehash briefly, we're playing Gamma World. Basically, our characters are just scavengers in this like deserty area. It's Arizona or is it Nevada that we're in? Um,
It is God. Where is it? It's Arizona. No, it's New Mexico.
New Mexico. Yes. So we're in the deserts of New Mexico, long time after the nuclear war has taken place. We figured out it was how are you saying it? Albuquerque
Yeah,
that we were in.
Albuquerque. Yeah,
Albuquerque, but we found an entrance into an old spaceport, and so we're going down trying to explore it because we want to scavenge the whole place and take all our stuff,
and
take all
the
this
spaceport
really
has
valuable
been
stuff.
the spaceport's been covered by sand dunes in the intervening
Yes,
centuries. So,
and
yeah.
has remained largely undisturbed for an extremely long time, and so riches beyond our wildest dreams that we could take out of there. But um, as we were making our way through and as we were exploring, basically what he did is present us with just a big red button in one room that had a sign on the door that just said power plant. We could discern that it said power plant. And of course, this threw us into a tizzy at the end
Oh,
of the last
it
time we
just
played, and we just didn't know what to do. Like, oh god, this is a forced this choice. We have either yes or no. There's nothing in between. So we ended the game last time before we made a final decision, but then this time we started out straight out of the gate. Buttons right there. What are we gonna do, guys? And so initially we're playing it safe. No, we're not gonna press the button. There's no point in
well,
doing that. It'll
and
start off a lot of danger.
exactly that was the concern that everybody had was if we start up the power plant, what's going to happen? Well, we could end up having, excuse me, we could end up having security robots come in and kill us all.
And
there are
that
all
was our main
kinds of
concern.
things. Yeah, but go on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So and eventually we decide, you know what? Screw it. We're just gonna press the button because it'll be an adventure if we do. So we press the button. And the first thing that happens after we do that, it's like, okay, you press the button, you start to hear kind of a hum going on. And then what do you do? What do you start playing?
Well, I found some really nice elevator music to play. So it's
Because it's an
basically
airport.
it was music, and I started the music and everybody was like, "Uh oh," they're thinking it's going to be, the science fiction equivalent of Anvil of Crom from Conan the Barbarian, and it ends up being yeah, and it ended up being I mean it was funny to watch the expressions on your faces when
Absolutely
suddenly
hilarious.
just music came on and it kept playing over and over and over and
He
over.
had this looping in real life for like 3 hours, like just elevator music going nonstop. I tried to find the sample that you used the next day, like
Seriously.
on YouTube. I couldn't find it. I have no idea where you found that, but it was just going and going and going. And it was we talk a lot about how like cave sounds and like dripping water contribute to us when we're playing D&D being like really careful and kind of cautious with all the decisions that we make. This had the opposite effect. So as soon as the music started going, we're like, "Oh, it's time to be goofy." And so we just started screwing around for the rest of it. I mean, we were still taking the adventure seriously,
But it,
but
but
it
it
was
was
a
it was
very different mindset.
it was a complete change. It was a complete
Yeah.
change. It was almost like the threat. It wasn't gone, but the threat had been
Mhm.
pushed into the shadows. And as long
It
as
had
you
been
stayed out of the
changed
shadows,
significantly.
right? I
Yeah.
think I've got that music right here. Hang on.
because it really was funny. But yeah, all the power came back on in this huge place, and we start just kind of looking around because our characters have never known any place that has like power to this degree,
Right.
even remotely close to it. They've never come into contact with it. So we're exploring. The first thing we do is sit down in this little restaurant that's operated totally by robots, and we eat food. And so we just go through this process of buying food, eating food, playing, really leaning into the role playing of our characters, not knowing what like this fancy food that was available. What was it, like beef stroganoff or something?
Beef bourguignon was the
Yes.
was the was a special of the century, as it were.
Uh huh. So we were eating that and just really confused and thrown back. Oh my god, this is the best food we've ever eaten in our lives. But after we were done with that, we realized that the spaceport was slowly starting to clear itself of sand in like this automated way. So slowly, this really, really bright landmark is emerging from the desert in a time period where there's no electricity. There is no man-made light really anywhere. And we're terrified because we've been concerned about people finding this incredible amount of wealth that they'll be able to take from us because we're like really low level characters. We don't have any ability to defend ourselves against like a group of warrior people coming and trying to take this. So the place is clearing itself of sand, but we can't figure out a way to stop it. We don't know how to operate any of this technology, computers or what have you. So instead, we're just like, okay, well, we'll just kind of wander around the spaceport a little bit and see what we can find. See if there's any kind of nooks and crannies that have revealed themselves where we can find some things of value to help us out a little bit. And, when you go to the airport, there are arrivals and there are departures, right, on the big board, so you can figure out where your plane's going to be. And there's something similar in this. In one of the, but the problem when we look at these boards, they all say delayed because, of course, it's been hundreds of years and none of these flights are coming, none of them are going, so on and so forth, which is kind of what we expected. But there is one that says that it's on time, one departure that says it's on time. But our characters, we asked him for like where our characters are mentally on this, and they like vaguely understand what this place was for. They kind of have an understanding of like ships would come and land here, people would take off and they would go somewhere else, but it was all scheduled. You have to have a ticket. We didn't really understand that whole concept. We're like, okay, well, gate 5, there's something going on there. We know that much, so let's go check it out. So we kind of waddle down. We wander our way down to gate 5. There's a robot protecting the place. We sneak our way, fake our way to get into this big pillar is how it was described to us. We're like, oh, this is pretty cool. Start wandering around, start climbing around through this big pillar, and we find a big screen. And what does the big screen say? What's happening on the big screen?
Well, it said departure in T-20.
Yeah. And we were on like the 3rd level of this big pillar. And only then, even really did I, Alexander, not just my character, realize, oh, the big pillar is like a rocket ship. Like, the Apollo missions taking off. Because in my mind, it was spaceport. Something comes down that's like kind of a
Kind of like
plane
space
that's all
shuttle type thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spaceship kind of thing comes and lands. Your X-Wing lands. You get onto it and you take off again. I didn't have, rocket ship in mind with this. And I'm like, oh, okay. We should probably all sit down then, shouldn't we? And we all immediately resigned ourselves to our fate.
That was the
There
funny
was no
part.
sprint to get off
It
of
was
the rocket
it was
that we
just
were
a
on.
oh well, it's too late to get off now. Let's see what
Here
happens
we
next.
go, fellas.
Yeah.
So everyone just sat down in their chair, and the last thing that happened in the evening is our rocket took off into space. And we have no idea where we're going. There is nothing saying you're going to the moon or you're just flying to a different portion of the planet. We have no idea. So that's where we left off. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say we're very excited to get back and play that again. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. If nothing else, just because I'm curious to see where we're going to
Where the
land
heck it goes.
with
Yeah.
our stolen uniforms and our spears, basically,
Yeah.
that are keeping us going.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it should be fun.
I enjoyed it. I thought that it was funny, funny in a good way though. There was a lot of indecision, a lot of well, should we or shouldn't we, and that just kept going and going. And I wanted you to push the button because to start
Oh,
up,
I know you did.
to start up the the power plant.
Just because you had that music
Well,
in the
that
chamber and you wanted
you
to let that
exactly. I had to let
fly.
that music get out there, and
Uh-huh.
it was just funny to watch you guys agonize over whether or not you should, just one button. You agonized over that for probably 45 minutes.
Yeah.
We better not push this. Yo, I think we should. Oh, we better not. And I just kept,
Wandering off and then
yeah,
wandering
and
back
I would
and
just
just yeah.
toss out the occasional little, you know, the ancients used to have all these different things that would happen when they had power.
Every time you did that, Calvin looked like he wanted to kill you.
I know it. I know it because he did
He
not
was
want you guys to push that
furious.
button. That
He
was
did
so
not.
funny.
No. I think we're all glad that we did,
Oh
but
yeah, I think so. I think so.
it was funny to see the contention
Yeah,
arise from that.
but yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a
Well,
good game.
it's a good game. If you've never played it, I would definitely recommend it. It's not a similar experience, I think, really in any way to Dungeons and Dragons.
Right,
We're
or at
not.
least the way we play it, it's not. It definitely is not.
Yeah, we're not approaching it in the same way. We're not taking it as seriously because it is more of a. I mean, there are going to be some people who are going to build really like complicated, intricate worlds out of it, but I just
Right.
don't think that's something that we really have a lot of interest in doing.
Well,
So
and I mean that may change as your characters become more powerful, as you end up getting resources that you can use to establish yourselves more thoroughly in the local system. But for right now, there's kind of a, I'm not going to say it's a comic veneer, but there's a little bit of a comedic overlay on it because it's an absurd situation
well,
of these
it's
people from these basically hunter gatherer types or slight they've just gotten into farming and suddenly they
uh,
find themselves in a spaceport. There's a comedic element to that which you
oh yeah.
can't escape from.
No, but I mean, I think that part of that, and what I will say about that thematically is, I know that you are altering what's going on a little bit to fit
Oh
more of
sure.
a like a Fallout
Yeah,
setting.
it is definitely.
Um,
I've really that's been what I've been trying to do, is turn this
yeah,
into a Fallout type experience.
and I think that that does probably have something to do with it. That's not to say that the entire game has more of a. I mean, I think it does have a little bit more of a comedic twist on it than some of the D&D stuff, but I think that we're leaning into that a
I
lot.
think
So
I
if you
think so
wanted to
too.
play the game and take it very seriously and have a very serious world where serious dark things are happening, you could. That's absolutely something you could do. But I think that, especially because I'm such a huge Fallout fan, you're a really big Fallout fan,
Right.
it's easily lending itself to that idea,
Yeah,
to that theme,
I
that
think
setting.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Had a really good time playing that, and I want to try and get that on a regular rotation for playing, so we don't lose sight of it.
Yeah.
I was amazed at one interesting thing though is I was amazed at how fresh in everybody's mind. We haven't played that game for 6 months at least,
Longer than that. It was like a year, I'd say.
and everybody remembered exactly where we were when we stopped. So I think the fact that
Yeah.
it's a fresh game, that it's a new setting, I think people are really taking that into their consciousness, their gaming consciousness, pretty strong, as opposed to
Yeah.
the regular D&D game that we play, where people are like, wait a minute, when we stopped playing last time, what happened? That's not happening with the Gamma World, which is interesting.
Gr- Granted, though, I will say that we haven't had that issue with D&D, I think, in a long time, since the beginning of the campaign that we're on now. I mean, there's a little bit of catching up right at the beginning of everything,
Right.
but I
Right.
feel like with the campaign we're playing now, that hasn't been a problem. Um, but I think we definitely did, before this D&D campaign started, experience a bit of a lull
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
in
You're right.
not the quality or the memorability of it, but just we weren't quite as dialed in and focused on what was taking
Yeah,
place.
that's it. But I think that there was I don't want to say that it was mundane, but there was an element of sameness about the
Yeah,
adventure. Not that it wasn't, there weren't things that you had to do, but it was you had to go through the same things in order to understand what was happening. So there
yeah,
wasn't a huge, because again, I think it's, well, when you do an adventure in an entire evening and you move 35 yards and that's it, there's a lot of sameness in that just
Yeah.
spending the entire evening in 35 yards. So I think that's playing a role too. That there's just
Yeah.
there's nothing momentous happening.
Yeah, and I think I get the feeling that that's probably going to change either in the next session we play or the one after that, because I
Yeah.
think there's going to, if I can imagine what's vaguely the direction we're headed, I think we're going to reach a point where either A, we can't take things slowly because of external pressures that will prevent us from doing
Exactly.
so,
Yeah.
or there's just going to be, I think there's going to be a lot more action taking place, and the setting is going to change significantly enough where we're
Yeah.
not just, you know, wide-eyed sneaking our way through as quietly as we can, trying to figure out these
Right.
little mysteries with ghosts that, looking back on it, we should have figured out way earlier than we did. But,
But
you know,
it's all right.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I
it's a
think you're
process.
right. It is going to be. There are going to be some changes in momentum in what's going on,
Yeah.
because I think you guys are about where you need to be to come up with the whys and wherefores. Now you just need to come up with the solutions to solving the problems.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we're hopefully close to
We'll see.
the first step. Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm My hopes are not high for the survivability of this
Of your
character, these
of your
characters.
characters. Yeah.
Given the environment that we are finding ourselves in, unless something changes significantly or something is introduced to us that we are working towards, we're
You've already seen one thing that I've already introduced one thing that you guys didn't really pay much attention to. And the other major thing, which was a part of this complex from when I designed it, 2 years ago, you haven't come across that yet. And it's going to be interesting to see how you end up using that element that you'll come across fairly soon.
well, and this might not make sense to anybody listening, but it's our podcast. I don't care. I the
It's not very
I the
that's not very nice.
But now I'm focused in on it. The time travel thing is the thing that I still haven't figured out.
But it's not time travel.
Oh, that was a big nugget you just gave me there.
It's not time
Interesting.
travel.
Huh. Is
You're
it an
gonna,
illusion?
I'm not going to tell you any more than that. You got to figure it
It's a
out.
crazy. Okay, well, yeah. I am excited to go back and keep playing that one.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
We'll see what happens. Huh. Anyway, D&D's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been good. What else has been going on? I came across something that I thought was kind of cool. As you guys know, I spent a lot of time poring over old D&D magazines and fanzines. One of my favorites is Alarms and Excursions, as many of you probably know. I was reading Alarms and Excursions number 8. And this came out in 8. This came out in 1976. And there was a really cool thing in here that I'm going to have to read a little bit of stuff to, that I need to, this kind of opened an entire door for me that I haven't really thought much about. Okay, in AD&D, there are a lot of cantrips that are thrown in, really low level helping spells, nothing major.
That you're leaning into more and more now.
Yes and no. I mean, but this thing that I was reading made me take a second look at them. And I think that I want to, as far as the cantrips are concerned, I want to make these available to more people than your normal wizard/magic user. And let me give you this is an example of why I want to do that. because I think that there are, and I'm not saying that everybody can cast these, but I think there are going to be. What I want to do is have folk memories and family history tales, and grandma tells you that you can do this or this if you do this and this, that will help you, and if you do it right you can pull off a little magic thing. I think that that's something that people need to be able to do, and here's why. This is what got me to do this. This is a spell out of our Alarms and Excursions number 8, 1976. It's called the Threshold spell, and I don't know if this has been reused in D&D at a later time or if it was integrated into something, but I need to go through this. The article starts, this is by Lee Gold. She was the person who actually put Alarms and Excursions together. And she starts off in quotes, "Nothing passes doors or windows save moonlight and starlight and the wind off the hilltop." That's a quote out of Fellowship of the Ring in the House of Tom Bombadil. Okay? Then she goes into the meat of the article. "There is always something reassuringly safe about being behind a closed door when the forces of evil come around. Dracula could not enter a house without having been invited in. The presence that haunted Hill House could not penetrate into a soul unless the person had been intimidated into welcoming it. Even the Nazgul, though able to break down doors and gates, fled from anyone making a strong resistance, not just from Gandalf in the streets of Gondor, but even from Fatty Bolger and friends when they rallied to the sound of the horn call of Buckland. It seems to be one of the strongest and at the same time one of the simplest spells known to man, so easy that even a child can work it, so strong that it can resist even the most deadly supernatural enemy for a while. That is the spell of the Threshold." And, when you think about it, that's something that's in all kinds of stories. Folk tales.
Kind of a cornerstone.
It really kind of is. Nope, you can't cross the threshold here unless you're the vampire. You can't cross the threshold unless you're invited in.
Yeah.
She continues, "And it also seems to me to be related to a more sophisticated device frequently used by conjurers, the ring or the circle, which seems on careful analysis to be merely a threshold bent around a certain point and walling it in rather than out. The ring can function either to keep the conjured spirit confined to a certain area or can at times be used as an attack to confine your enemy to a certain spot, though in this latter case it is usually a triple ring, one made by circling 3 times widdershins around your enemy faster than he can escape from the spot you are encircling." Anyway, for some time now I've been wondering whether all this is adaptable to D&D, and I think that it is. So she comes up with the Threshold spell, and I like what she's done with this. "May be done only by those not sensitized to higher forms of magic." So in other words, your wizards can't be doing this. They're not, or your clerics are not going to be able to pull this off. It may not be performed by magic users nor clerics above first level. It may not be performed by anyone who bears on his person any magical implements. It functions as a barrier of resistance to not natural forces. So, the spell. A threshold keeps out most attack spells, including sleep. The charm group of spells can penetrate at -5 strength, and phantasmal sendings can penetrate unaffected. Okay. Monsters. Sure. A threshold is an absolute barrier against non-material entities. Unnatural entities, such as gargoyles and trolls, will find themselves weakened by it so that their armor rating is 2 weaker and their damage is done at a -2. In addition, material entities subject for any reason to damage only by magic can penetrate a threshold only after 3 attempts, each of which one does 1 to 6 points of damage. Entities subject for any reason to damage only by silver and magic can enter only after 2 attempts, each of which does 1 to 6 points of damage. Other entities can enter only after 1 attempt, which does 1 to 6 points of damage. In addition, all entities take 1 to 10 hit points of damage upon crossing the threshold. The threshold spell is nullified at the will of the originator, but otherwise lasts indefinitely as long as the originator remains in one place. It works only in a fully enclosed area. All penalties for crossing are halved if the originator does not strongly hold the threshold. So it takes some concentration to keep this thing going. Mm-hmm. So that got me to thinking, that entire thing got me to thinking that there needs to be more of a, and this has been addressed in D&D in the past. It's just that it's never something that I've worked into my campaign. There needs to be more of a folk magic presence.
Mm,
So it's not something that you have to be highly trained in the arcane to be able to pull off. It needs to be something that the common people have learned because it's been passed down from generation to generation. And it
yeah.
affords protection against some really bad things if you know how to do it right. It's kind of like you know, the Israelites putting blood around the doorframe on Passover to make sure that the people inside the house were protected. It's that kind of a thing.
Hmm.
You didn't have to be an expert in the use of magic to be able to make this stuff work. You just had to know that the ability to do it existed, and you had to want to be able to do it. Because
Yeah.
I hate the idea of opening up magic to people who have not studied magic. But at the same time, I think there needs to be some basic things that, again, the common people can make use of that for time immemorial have been part of the public consciousness. So this kind of got me starting to think that maybe there needs to be a list of, 5 or 6 different spells that, you know, grandma taught you that would come in
Hmm.
handy against a certain entity or a certain being or a certain mental attack or whatever else.
No, I think that's really cool, and I think it could be. I think it could be expanded in ways that aren't necessarily just spell based, but it could be, I don't know, more of a cultural thing almost. Like if you're
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
place where if your characters are, I'm envisioning it working particularly well for like elves in your world,
yes,
where if you
without
were
a doubt.
raised in a certain area, you know how to make a totem that you can put in a certain place, or if you hang it off of the edge of your sword or something, it's going to give your sword just some sort of bonus. Um,
Right.
Easy to do, but because I think that, and we've discussed this a little bit before, but having especially, sorry, having especially like low level characters, um, when they're fighting things that are really high, like powerful magical creatures,
Right.
having some sort of equalizer in that I think is important, and I think this is a good way to go about that. Like if you do find yourself beset upon by a couple of trolls in the middle of a forest, you're still, it's not looking good, but you still might be able to put this little thing together that your parents taught you how to make or whatever
Right.
that'll help you a little bit.
Right.
And
If
it'll
you have
instill more creativity.
right, if you have the right raw material, if there's, if the king's foil is nearby, you have a way that you know how to manipulate that and use it. It's that kind of, I guess, folk medicine, folk magic. I think that's the term I'm going to use. It's going to be folk magic. That
Yeah.
it can be effective if you know how to use it. Now, things will be able to overcome it, but it's going to at least give you a fighting chance
Yeah.
if you find yourself in a bad situation. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
anyway,
like,
just thought it was interesting.
what the other thing that comes to mind is when we played the Cowboys and Zombies thing a long time ago,
Hmm.
and Calvin went around the building that we were in and put garlic up everywhere. Like that's not something that I ever really think about. It's even on the shopping guide for
Oh,
D and
sure.
D. You can
Yeah.
buy garlic
Garlic.
and
Yeah.
what wolfsbane as well.
Yep.
And I never think about having it. And I'm my if I went into battle fighting a vampire, my immediate thought would not be I'm going to buy a bunch of garlic and rub it all over my weapons to
Or
see if
all
that would help me.
or all over my body so that
Exactly, or like
it's
dangle it around my
it's
neck.
right.
Yeah.
No,
No, that's cool. I
but that's kind of the idea. That's a folk magic right there. Just garlic. Let's hang garlic on the door. Let's smear garlic around the windows and the doors to keep out the vampire, or at least to give them a negative when they try to do something.
yeah.
It's that level that I want to really explore and make available to people. If you have a party that goes into a dungeon or whatever else, and there are no magic users and no clerics, maybe somebody has some of that folk knowledge that will allow them just that little bit of a bonus, to
Yeah.
help them get through. So anyway, but
No.
I had not really thought much about it until I read this article. And again, this is the kind of information that I pull out of these old magazines because people much more creative than myself were coming up with this stuff, a couple of years before I even knew the game existed. So it's
Yeah.
fun to come across these articles and realize, oh, wow, that's actually a really good idea. There were some people minds were firing on all cylinders in those early days of D&D.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about it.
No, and it is. I mean, every time that we talk about one of the old journal entries or whatever else it is, that becomes more and more readily apparent that
Yep.
there is just a wealth of stuff that even those of you who are listening or watching, if you want new ideas or new things to incorporate into your campaign, even if you don't play AD&D, you're playing something else, find some of this stuff. It's all available. It's easy to get a hold of, and there's really a lot of good inspiration in there for something for you to make.
And again, I'm sure that there has been something done with the threshold spell. It's almost like a hold portal.
Sure.
But I don't want it to be a hold portal. It
Mhm.
needs to be simpler. It needs to be something that is more accessible to the average person. And that's why I think that this was a really, really fun idea. Anyway, something cool
No,
from
I think it's a good
1976.
Well, I think that
That brings us to 52 minutes, and that's about our cutoff point.
cool.
Uh,
I think it's a good podcast. Let us know your thoughts about this podcast.
And what
Down
if
in the
you know
comments
if
below.
there's something that you would like to see, something that you saw or heard in this podcast that you'd like to see or hear more of, let us know.
Or if you have a particular subject you want us to discuss, comment that down below, because coming up with things to talk about for these can sometimes be a bit of a task, especially if we haven't played D&D recently. Luckily we did. But
and we have had some podcasts that have been driven by one or two people, well, the comments of one or two people. We really have. So don't think that
and videos.
They're not going to want to hear what I have to say. Yeah, we really do. What else do we have to talk about? Don't forget, folks, we have an upcoming Kickstarter called Expedition to the Forest of Moon, which is something that's been taken out of my campaign. And we think that you'll enjoy it. It's got some really great artwork that was done in-house by my youngest son, Zachary. When I say that, it's like, he's a sixth grader, but it's not. He's actually
also the tallest son.
Yeah,
Zachary.
he's like 6'7" or 6'8", but he's a really good artist, and so he's doing the artwork for it. And we're taking the concepts out of my campaign and we're putting it into a set of cards that you will be able to use in your campaign. And that will be coming out. It looks like we had been saying end of 2024. I think it's actually going to be early 2025 at this point. So anyway, Expedition to the Forest of Moon. Go to Kickstarter. If you could, please follow it on Kickstarter, because that means that the algorithm then pushes it out to more people who will see it and then hopefully purchase it if it's something that they're interested in. So Expedition to the Forest of Moon, the newsletter. We have another one of those that'll probably be coming out here, I don't know, in about 4 weeks. Something
Soonish,
like that.
about a month.
Yeah, something like that.
Probably November-ish.
We'll have 2 people writing columns for us in that, doing some contributions. Actually, 3 people, I think. And so if you want to be a part of that, send us an email at officialoldwarlock@gmail.com and say, hey, guys, sign me up for your newsletter. It just comes out as a PDF. It's free of charge. We just have some cool stuff that doesn't fit into a video that we want to share around. What else have we got? Patreon subscribers, you guys,
yes.
They are the ones who are actually keeping this channel going. If it wasn't for them, we would not be here right now. And anything else you can think of?
Like the video and subscribe to our YouTube
Oh,
channel.
yes.
And if you are
Yes.
listening to us on an audio platform that is not YouTube, follow us on that audio platform.
Yes. If it's
subscribe to the podcast. And
if you could do that. And one other thing, share this with people. Forward it on to other people and say, hey, there's these 2 crazy guys who talk about old D&D stuff. If you like it,
cool cats.
send it on.
Yeah.
Help us try and grow the channel a little bit if you could. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I got nothing.
Nor I.
So
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for viewing, subscribing. You guys are thebomb.com, and we couldn't appreciate you any more than we do.
yeah, it's fun, guys, and you guys, all the comments that we get and all the we almost never get anything negative. It's 99.9% of it's all positive, and the 0.1% or the 0.01, you know what I mean.
They're fun.
The folks that are left, it actually makes us laugh. So yeah, it's all good. It's 100% good for us.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got. I'm Jim.
I'm Alex.
Keep your sword on free, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.